Welcome to the DasChampions podcast. You could call this the Football Report podcast. You could call this the Linners Woozers podcast. We're kind of all in this together. I'm joined by some good folk. I'll start off with my partner in crime, Ryan Tooney. Ryan, what's up, man? How are you?
Well, I was doing pretty well, and then it was 5:30 Central Time, and I got some terrible news.
Yeah, I got some bad news too. Linners Woozers, how are you guys doing over there? Rico?
It's always nice to be back and talking about our favorite subject, the U.S. men's national team roster. So it's an exciting time.
It's a golden subject, really. And then the revered Football Report. What's up, buddy?
Just got terrible news. Greg did a Greg again.
Greg laid an egg. Let's start from the top. Let's talk about the keepers. Any immediate reaction to the keeper selection? Football Report, what's your take?
Well, I have like an inside take on Poland. So they have about 20 goalkeepers playing in European football who are around his age. So he's like 20th on the sheet, so there's not really much chance for him there. But if we don't, he might just tell us, you know what, I don't even want to play international football until Greg's gone because, well, he's not playing the entire month until after the window's done. So he's just going to be sitting at home doing nothing. He might as well be here being called unlimited players.
That makes total sense. Ryan, we were chatting the other day. You had some takes on Ethan Horvath.
Yeah. So, Horvath has really taken his chance at Nottingham Forest and run with it, and looks like he's kind of starting to solidify himself as the top goalie for that club. And I get the feeling this momentum for him is going to continue. And I just wouldn't be surprised, given how well he did against Mexico in the Nations League, if Ethan, gets the nod, actually, especially with Zach just coming back from injury. I'm thinking Ethan gets the nod and actually has a really big chance here to start becoming the men's national team keeper. Maybe it's a long shot here, but I think there's a big chance for Ethan.
Nick, what's your take on that? Football Report, let me ask you this. If you had to choose between replacing Sean Johnson with Gabby or just adding Gabby to the roster, which one would you do and why?
I would probably just replace Johnson with Gabby because there's no point to Johnson being there. He's offering just about a little bit less than Gabby is, so you only need one third choice keeper. There's no point in bringing Johnson just to sit there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And in the famous words of Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So Berhalter, I guess, got 2 out of 3 correct in the easiest position to get right. Nick, before we move off this subject, what do you got for us? I totally agree. If you've got a interest in showcasing MLS talent, why not showcase the right ones? It raises the question of why players like Mihailovic, who I just realized is a huge exclusion, isn't in the roster. But before we get into midfielders, why don't we move on to defenders? What's our immediate reaction to the defenders who have been included? Football Report, what do you think?
Well, Miles Robinson is in awful form to start the season. He got sent off one game. He made dangerous challenges to get early yellow cards in some of the others. His defending's been pretty bad. He's been getting shown up by Campbell, who's basically, brand new to the team, besides barely played last season. And then you have Long, because he scored a goal. I guess that makes him a good defender now. Better than CVC, apparently, who's playing for Celtic and playing European football before they got knocked out. So it really doesn't make any sense.
Ryan, you want to piggyback off that?
Yeah, I'm thinking about James Sands, actually. And, we were talking a bit before this about, maybe he's there to be a backup midfielder as well, which kind of makes sense. But he was listed amongst the defenders when the roster dropped. And he hasn't been getting a ton of time for Rangers, generally speaking, but then also he's gotten no time as a center back recently. Even I don't think he was playing center back for New York City FC much either. So it's really an odd inclusion, and it probably is one of Greg's like safety blanket things. Especially when Brooks not being in there is a huge snub. There has to be straight up personal issues going on. But for me, Sands is probably the big surprise inclusion here.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely personal issues going on with Brooks and Berhalter, because there's no other reasonable explanation. Nick, what do you got for us? Yeah, take care, Nick. We lost Nick to mic issues. All good. Eric Palmer Brown, I must piggyback and say, is a good selection. I think it's one of the few things that Berhalter got correct. Rico and Nick Stead, are you going to pick up on that comment?
No, I'm not going to go ahead and pick up on that comment specifically, not just because on the individual Eric Palmer Brown, I don't have much to say. Do want to go ahead and point out that I personally believe that the defense is the U.S. men's national team biggest problem right now. In terms of it probably has the most holes and questions. When I look at that selection, Anthony Robinson at left back is the only one, and I hate using this word lock, but is the only guy that I know for sure we should have in that back. Watched the Europa League match today between Barcelona and Galatasaray. Serginho Dest coming off with a little bit of an injury. Saw a video of Gavi carrying him back into the hotel on his back. So there's some questions there if he's going to be all right there. Hopefully it's something minor, but just to raise the question, let's say Serginho Dest is not there to play right back. Right now, my options I see are Reggie Cannon and not a fan favorite, DeAndre Yedlin. I know that he was leaked one of the earliest guys today. Some tweets coming out of Inter Miami FC that he was going to be on the roster. The last few times he's gone against Mexico, we've gone a dub there. Personally, I think he's one of their biggest liabilities on the field. Mexico might go ahead and exploit that. But again, I don't know if Serginho Dest is out, who could step up for that right back position. And then the center backs. I spent pretty much all week thinking who's going to pair up next to John Brooks. Is it going to be Zimmerman, or are we going to see a disappointment of Miles Robinson? I don't even see Brooks on this roster. And now I have to go ahead and figure out if Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson is going to be the duo that we're going to go ahead and go forward. And I know that Robinson's had a pretty poor form recently, actually throughout this season here in MLS. So I don't know. I think defense for me is where most of the questions are going to be asked coming closer to these matches. And hopefully they can go ahead and carry on with these, hopefully healthy legs for the whole window, because it's a short but lengthy one at the same time. And it's a really important one.
Yeah, Ja, definitely feel. Football Report, where's your head at?
All right, so I'm just going to go off real quick here. Biggest snubs in defense for me, right? No Scally, so okay. Maybe we'll be an emergency call-up with Dest out. You have no Cameron Carter-Vickers, like I said before. No Brooks, makes 0 sense. And Richards is back from injury, so might have been worth a call-up because we don't have many center backs that are two-footed or left-footed, so we're good with the ball.
I'm right there with you. I'm shocked that Cameron Carter-Vickers isn't being brought in, considering that Sands has been brought in. Cameron Carter-Vickers is just straight up a better player than Sands as a defensive asset, at least in the center back position specifically. And he's certainly better than a Miles Robinson. He's certainly better than an Aaron Long. So it really begs the question of why is Berhalter integrating players like Long over players like Cameron Carter-Vickers? And I'm sure a lot of people at home might be thinking, well, Long, maybe is integrated in the team. He was at the last training camp. Long has missed the majority of the last 2 seasons with an Achilles injury. The guy hasn't had the chance to play with the team. And so the only argument's that he sat home and watched PowerPoints and gotten integrated into Berhalter's squad. But I think what's very clearly happening here with the defensive unit is, and Rico, this is to your point, we're not bringing in our best players, and what should be our strongest line, our strongest unit on the field, the defending core, is actually now one of our weakest. So I'll pause there for a second. I think Palmer Brown was a great addition. Just want to piggyback on that. Ryan, do you have any closing remarks on defenders before we move to midfielders?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is, once again, Berhalter has chosen players for the fullback positions that give us a really unbalanced roster in terms of how many right backs we have versus left backs. And that is compounded by Serginho Dest's injury. Him being, I guess, basically, as this roster is aligned, would have been the backup left back. So, it's odd to not see maybe somebody like Bello on the roster. And, of course, Scaly as well, because, well, he can play both sides of the field, similar to Dest. So, yeah, it's just more evidence of the odd roster management by Berhalter.
Before we transition, Rico, I'm going to let you get a word in. Football Report, you gave us a soundbite on a guy out of Miami. You gave us the Yedlin story. Tell us the Yedlin story, and tell us like your line of thinking with Yedlin.
All right, so I follow Super League quite closely because there's a lot of good youngsters there. But what I picked up on was Galatasaray, terrible form. Manager got sacked, right? But before he got sacked, he dropped Yedlin for 2 months because Yedlin was by far like the worst player on the team. Then the former NYCFC manager that was here before the current one, he got appointed. He got to look at the roster, gave Yedlin like 2 straight starts. Yedlin bombed in both of them, immediately terminated his contract, and that was it. He's gone.
Then he goes to Miami.
Yep, and bombs there too. He's been pretty bad. He's been outperformed by Noah Allen, who's literally 17 and had his debut the opening game. So,
and this kind of goes to our line of thinking. Like, if you've got the option to bring in a dude who's washed and is on like a hard decline, and I've got a spot for Yedlin, and Ryan's got a spot for Yedlin. But if you've got the option to bring in like a emerging 17, 18-year-old, or bringing in somebody who's on the sharp decline, I mean, Yedlin shouldn't be looked at as a starting option. It's strange to me that you wouldn't bring in somebody who's on the up and up and use your international team. And this was said by what is it? Hugo what's Hugo's last name? The El Salvador coach. Someone help me.
Hugo Perez?
Hugo Perez. Hugo Perez said this in an interview recently. He's like, the international break is an opportunity for your young talent to be scouted by other clubs. It's a audition in a lot of ways. And so by bringing your young players in, you actually enrich your national team's opportunity to get better because you give them transfer opportunities. So why not bring in a Noah Allen instead of a DeAndre Yedlin if he's in better form right now? Rico, I know that you want to get a word in. I'm going to let you go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I did have some closing thoughts on the defense, but I want to go ahead and hop on that comment there. And this is all speculation, in my opinion. Personally, I think the United States has made that leap, or it's making that leap right now, where maybe these international breaks are a little bit more serious. In fixtures, maybe like friendlies, nations leagues, maybe even the Gold Cup, I would go ahead and say these are opportunities where you should go ahead and bring out the youngsters. Maybe Gabby from Chicago would have been a great opportunity. This is a great showcase for them. This this World Cup qualifying window, I feel like there's a little bit more at stake here. It's not maybe the right time to go ahead and give these youngsters the opportunity to go ahead and get showcased. So maybe we might go ahead and see some of these individuals get dropped. But with that being said, leads to my follow-up question, which we've talked a lot about individuals who have not made the roster in the past, and I know John Brooks has been one of our favorites. He continues to go ahead and not be on the roster here. So now I can't go ahead and keep defending Greg by saying, at least these players are in, because in this roster, specifically in the defense, I'm seeing signs and questions. Like, why are we bringing these individuals? Going off of DeAndre Yedlin on that story you just brought up here, those are obvious signs to me that he's on a decline. And I feel like he's been on a decline for quite a while here. And maybe some of these players right now who are showing bad form are actually on a decline. Why are we bringing in some of these assets where we have individuals, like you mentioned, CCV not being part of the lineup here? So I don't know. I can't go ahead and keep defending Greg with some of these snubs. But
it's hard when he talks out of both sides of his mouth too. Like the Brooks issues historically were related to form, and when players are out of form, he's still bringing them in. And so there's no evident criteria for what makes a player earn a spot on the men's national team. And we've heard that from many players. I mean, we've heard that from Luca De La Torre in interviews. But we're gonna stop beating a dead horse. Let's move on to the midfield. Let's move on to the midfield group. I think it's a great point, Rico. What's our immediate reaction to the midfield pairings?
I like the midfield.
You like? Very nice. Ryan, do you have any take?
Just before I say I like, if anyone doesn't and want to say why, that's why.
No, I definitely am interested in the why. Ryan, jump in.
For the most part here, it's kind of what I would have anticipated. Last Christian rolled on. I just don't think he's done enough to retain a place. And I think there's a lot of other good options. Namely, I think Milojevic probably deserves a shot over Roldan, but he keeps holding on to that. It's good that Leggett has finally been cut loose in terms of like, all right, we got over that bump finally. But yeah, that's my only real gripe is Roldan being included, where he's just literally never proven that he is worth including with the national team, but keeps getting included for, making Greg feel comfortable. I guess it's really odd.
It's although it's just one player and it sounds like a small gripe, it's actually quite a big problem. And that's just my take. I think this like nepotism thing and the overall depth of our roster, when you start to couple it with the other issues that are present, it's more than just Roldan continuing to be included. It's the exclusion of other good players, the failure to calibrate which rosters work, the failure to integrate players, the failure to bring in depth when you could otherwise bring in depth. So I totally hear you. And for our listeners at home, it's a lot bigger than just nepotism. Football Report, you got any take on our midfield?
Yeah. So I'm probably the one who's the most negative about this. So I know that we need to play Greg's system, so it makes sense that Adams is in there, Acosta's in there. Sands maybe can be a backup there. So you have Busio, yeah, that's great. But then you have Roldan and Musa, and that's the extent of the players you have who can create any chances. Besides DLT. What's the chance Greg actually utilizes it properly? So why are you not calling in Sonora, who you said you would integrate in? Why has Dwayne Holmes been dropped and just like Brooks, never came back after that? Mihailovic, probably best midfielder in MLS right now. No chances over Roldan, though. That's my big gripe. Also,
Yeah,
you
man.
can call in more. There's no limit to how many players you can call in, just how many you can put in the matchday squad. Having options is not a bad thing. So you also have Johnny, another who plays in Brazil or Al.
You nailed it, man. That's a fantastic take. No, I agree. There's limited creation with players that we have available. It's really De La Torre, Busio, and Musa who are going to be the guys who create for us. And there's a failure to honor promises and integrating players like you had brought up with Sonora. Dwayne Holmes seems to be in the John Brooks camp where he's just on the shit list, but he's actually a very valuable player. And why not bring in the best midfielder in MLS instead of Roldan? Ryan, I see you with a few comments. Where's your head at?
Yeah, while Football Report was talking there, it really got me thinking about how much of a hole Weston leaves here. The roster shape looks just entirely different in the midfield area when he's not around. Especially from that driving forward with the ball and creation standpoint, though he might not be entirely known for that at Juventus. He, for the U.S. men's national team, is our beating heart in so many ways. And as Football Report was talking, I was just thinking, man, we really, really are going to end up missing Weston here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder if our vulnerabilities and our issues are going to be put on full display without somebody who's contesting to be really one of the best American players of all time in his prime in the roster. Before we move on to attackers, Rico, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I just want to go ahead and close out my thoughts when I said that I really like it. Truthfully, there's not many huge exemptions from who we're missing here in the midfield block, with Weston McKennie being out with injury. And yeah, the snub for Mihailovic not being on this roster, despite being in pretty good form and showing great success in the MLS last year with Chicago Fire. But I don't know, some of the players here and the integration that they can go ahead and be used in different varieties at the 8 and 6 for Greg. I think it's going to be kind of interesting. He has a lot of different moving pieces he can use. I think with Tyler Adams, if he can go ahead and stay fit, it'll be obviously nice to go ahead and have him at the 6, but Kellen Acosta dropping in there. Despite not being a Colorado Rapids player, still going to go ahead and support the introduction of him on this roster. Gianluca Busio, Luca De La Torre, Yunus Musa, all three of them. Again, if we got Tyler Adams playing the 6, can go ahead and equally play in front of him. And I think Luca De La Torre in last window changed my mind when previously I thought him being snubbed was okay. I think now I definitely want to go ahead and see some more of him. And then you just kind of look at Christian Roldan. He hasn't really gotten the minutes before, what do you bring him for? Experience? Do you want to even say that? With some of the other MLS guys that didn't get the call up, like Sebastian Lele or Jackson Ewell, it's kind of nice to at least see him over the other two. I know that Sebastian had the CONCACAF Champions League, so I don't know how that would have played out. But if you guys were talking about the introduction of, bringing in some of these younger individuals to play in the midfield, Jordan Mihalovic definitely would have been one that I would have liked to go ahead and see. You mentioned James Sands maybe slipping into that midfield position. That's nice. Talks about versatility, worst comes to worst scenario. I mean, wouldn't like to see players like Caden Clark or Cole Bassett as well, but I know that they're still far out. But if we're talking about, bringing in some youth, but I don't know. I think this midfield block has probably been one of the better ones in this window. I can't be too upset. Some of the exclusions that we normally want to be excluded are finally not there. And that's it. I like it.
Rico, you're a lot more forgiving than I am. It would do me well to have your composure at times, but I have I have a sickening reaction to what I see here.
I think these players are more technical than a lot of the defensive players that we're going to go up against. I think a lot of the Mexican defense and Panama defense might go ahead and actually struggle to go ahead and keep possession against our midfield. But
yeah, I've been thinking that about every window we've been going into. All right, let's move on to the attacker segment. And I appreciate your take. All right, what's our gut reaction to who? Man, what do we think about the attackers? I'm upset. Ryan?
I just, at this point in time, I don't know how you could make a viable argument to justify having Jordan Morris be included over Josh Sargent, just to kind of like highlight a specific thing here. Josh Sargent starts at right winger for Norwich like every game. And yeah, they're the worst team in the Premier League. But Jordan Morris scores goals because the league quality is such that when he falls over, he can score still. And he hasn't played like at a high level, or he hasn't played competitive games very much because of his ACL injury. And it's just, there's such a huge, I say this kind of stuff often, but a huge disconnect between like the reality of what these players are doing on a week-to-week, game-to-game basis and like how they're being assessed and slotted in on the national team. It really baffles me. Like, and that comparison right there, I think kind of highlights the absurdity of what Greg's assessment process is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there are just simply players that are present in our attacking format. I don't see Josh Sargent as being a guy who's burned any bridges. I don't see Conrad De La Fuente as being a guy who's burned any bridges. So I don't understand why Jordan Morris or Paul Arriola should be included over either of those two. And personally, Enrico, I'm going to bounce to you here in a second. But as I look at look at the attacking format, and I look at a guy like Gio Reyna, of course I'm happy that Gio Reyna is in the roster. But I go back down to the defender segment, and I don't see Chris Richards. And so it's like, why is it okay for one player to return from injury and be integrated into the men's national team, but another guy who at this point might be a more important option for the team, considering that we're starting Miles Robinson as a defender and we could upgrade to Chris Richards? Like, why isn't he in there? And so even when I go down this list, it's not just Jordan Morris versus Josh Sargent. That's crazy. It's also this guy who just returned from injury, but why not the other guys who are returning from injury? And so I even get upset looking at the players who should be included. Football Report, I'm going to let you piggyback off that. Rico, we'll go to you next.
All right, so the one thing I'll say about Richards is the main difference, the only defendable part about this, is he hasn't played for his club again yet. So we actually don't know if he's actually good to go or not. And it might just be that the club refuses to release him because he's still recovering. So that's a thing too.
Totally kosher.
So then, yeah, I guess to address the attackers, I'll go after Rico goes.
Go ahead, Rico.
Right off the bat, I want to go ahead and agree with Ryan. The inclusion of Jordan Morris disappoints me. And not only do I follow the U.S. men's national team roster drops, but I'm trying to follow as many different countries. And today I got the opportunity to see, England drop theirs. And every country has a questionable why this player get called up? Why didn't this player got called up? And the case with the U.S. and Jordan Morris is, us fans, we know why he shouldn't be there. We know why we don't want him there. We don't know why Greg is selecting him. We know who we want him to replace. So I'm going to have to agree with Ryan here. I think I would have liked to see Josh Sargent, despite him being at the bottom of the Premier League table. I think he still brings a lot more talent than Seattle Sounders Jordan Morris is.
Yeah, well said. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, say something I'm pretty happy about, because we've been asking for it for a while, and he thoroughly deserves it. Jordan Pfolk is included here, and if anybody's going to score a goal for us based upon recent form, it's probably going to be Jordan Pfolk. So, yeah, I got to say I'm pretty happy about that, and I really, really hope that we get to see the best from him.
Yeah, I do as well. Football Report, we definitely value your opinion, so why don't you lay it on us?
All right, so I'm going to go a bit ham here. So
go ham.
First
go
off,
crazy.
Brendan Aronson, that's a lock for me. We have Paul Arriola. For me, he shouldn't even be considered. You have Morris, same thing. Really shouldn't be getting a look. He needs to lose some weight right now. He gained a bit, and he's losing his pace because of the injury, so he should be focusing more on recovering still. And plus, I don't even think he's that good technically. But, all right, so you got Ferrara, who I think is a great player, but a great 10. And we don't play with a 10, so there's no point in calling him up. So then you have someone like Ramirez, who's, playing in the SPFL and, scoring bags and bags of goals right now. He's like among the top scorers there, and even scored against Celtic. So, yes, he's old. Yes, everybody wants to see young players, but could it be worth having an experienced player who can actually score?
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and other national teams don't seem to have that problem. You look at what Italy did in the Euros. They didn't have any issues bringing in 30-year-old players, and I'm sure if the 30-year-old player was playing in the MLS, there'd be no problem with it. So again, why are players like Sands okay, but Christian Ramirez is not? Sorry to steal your thunder. Keep rolling, buddy.
All right, so to continue on, Morris should easily be Sargent over Arriola and Morris, and then of course Conrad De La Fuente. If you say Olympique Marseille, everybody knows what team that is. It's a big team. They're League One, one of the best teams there. He's played in European competition too. He's been in a good run of form. He doesn't start every game, but they have a very, very solid roster when it comes to attackers there. But he's getting chances. He's scored some goals, gotten some assists, and he's dynamic. He really offers a lot on the ball. He's a very good dribbler and makes great runs. He has good awareness, positional awareness. So I would like to see him included. He's a good talent. So I don't know why he's not there. But I am very, very happy that Pfolk's in here. We need Pfolk. He'll offer a lot, especially against Panama, where we're going to rely on set pieces probably. And he's a good header of the ball.
Dude, you nailed it. Ryan often jokes about this. It's like if you're looking for a goal in the 80th minute, who are you going to bring on? Paul Arriola. And it's moments like that where it's like not having Conrad De La Fuente is just such a mistake. So well said. Appreciate your opinion there. Rico, where's your head at?
I also want to go ahead and give a quick opinion on, if the guys in the attack shouldn't be there. And you mentioned a name that I think should be here, but I'll go ahead and just quickly say Brendan Aronson. Yes, definitely should be in this window. Paulo Arriola, wouldn't have liked to see him. Would have liked to see Conrad De La Fuente. Jesus Ferreira, personally for me, wouldn't have liked to see him either. Would have liked to see Josh Sargent. Jordan Morris, wouldn't have liked to see him. Would have liked to go ahead and see an extra defender spot or bring in Ghazi Sardis. Moving on. Jordan Pfolk should be there, definitely. Great form. Ricardo Pepi, definitely.
Did you just say Jesse Sardis?
I was trying to go ahead and go quick on that comment, but
I hate you at the record scratch, dude. There will be none of that blasphemy. No, it's fine. If you believe that, that's fine.
No, and I know it's a really hot take, and despite his awful form recently, and just he's having a lot of issues to figure out if he's going to go and be plans for the future for Columbus, or if he's going to go ahead and get a move out. There's some contract situations there. I think, this definitely could have been an opportunity for him to disassociate from all of that and get his mindset here for the U.S. men's national team. Still thinks he brings a lot, but maybe not right now. So it's okay that he got snubbed. I'm not crying about it. I'm probably for the best, but I'm just saying, if I could go ahead and get rid of some of these guys and replace them with who, but just want to go ahead.
You've got like 1 year, and you're going to be able to drink beers with him after recreational games. No, I hear you. That's a fair take. So as we conclude the attacker section, we've gone over every segment of our roster. What are some general remarks? Like, what are some general sentiments that we feel about how qualifying has gone so far? What we continue to do? Football Report, lead us off on this one.
All right, it's going to be a little aggressive, but Greg is an idiot, all right? You can call up, this is CONCACAF, you can call up to any amount of players you want. You only are restricted to 27, I think it is, in the match day squad, or is it 23? I don't fucking know, but that doesn't matter. The most important thing is, you can call up as many players as you want. So have depth in case somebody gets injured. Have options so you can get different looks for different games. And then, of course, Chicago Fire is not playing until the 19th. So, they're not playing until, exactly. They're playing 19th and then no more games. That's it. They're done. So, all right. Gabby could be in here. Seems like Greg is setting himself up for failure with the players he calls in, because he calls in lopsided amounts of fullbacks when he can call in as many as he wants. That's my big thing. Just call in more players. Use what you get.
Dude, those are great takes. Rico?
I'd have to go ahead and say probably this whole qualification World Cup window, all of them B- at most. I think, honestly, with the fact that this has been one of the weakest Mexico sides and we have capitalized on beating them, we should definitely go ahead and be undisputed number ones, in CONCACAF without question. And right now, the fact that Canada is coming off of 5 wins and they're number one, should go ahead and raise some eyebrows, because maybe Greg is not the most tactically efficient coach. We have so much depth. A lot of the players are playing in Europe for top clubs. Christian Pulisic getting the Champions League goal yesterday. And I don't know. I think B- at most, we're hanging in there. It's like you're not drowning because you have a life jacket, but man, a boat would really be nice right now,
Ryan, you got any closing remarks and thoughts?
Yeah. So kind of in the same vein as Football Report, it's hard to understand what Greg's methodology is. And I think for all of us, we watch a lot of different European club football. We watch the Euros and try to see how those rosters are constructed. We gather quite a bit of information and know a lot of examples of how what a roster looks like, why you do this with certain players, how you balance things. And so many of those rules, the general rules of thumb, don't seem to apply to the U.S. national team situation in general. And it just makes it really baffling to try to understand why these decisions are made and why players that would in analogous situations get called up aren't getting called up in these. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing, just kind of looking toward the window in the games in general, I'm very nervous about our ability to produce offense. I was actually pretty nervous about it before McKennie got injured even. And with him going down, it makes me really, really nervous. I don't see where goals are going to be coming from open play. I really, really hope I'm wrong. I think especially Panama is going to make it extraordinarily difficult for us to produce from open play. And I just, I hope we don't have a nightmare coming here, but it's not far-fetched to see us struggling to score goals and getting a bunch of draws or something.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm mostly in agreement with those sentiments, and in the interest of not being excessively negative, I'm actually going to hold my remarks for now. We've given enough opinions on who we think should be replaced in the roster. So as we close off, I want to just go down the list one more time and ask each of you this question. Football Report, what grade do you give Berhalter in this call-up?
I'm gonna have to give him a C minus because he's not utilizing what's being given to him. Like, he can do whatever he wants. Just call up more players.
Agreed. Rico, what do you give Berhalter?
B minus.
B's get degrees, dude.
C's.
Ryan, what are you saying? C's get degrees too? D's got degrees in my case. I mean, dude, anything but an F will get you a degree, but it might not get you to qualify for the World Cup unless you're hosting it. Ryan, what's your grade that you give?
I'm just
the
going
G unit.
I'm going to give him a C. I think there was a lot of room for things to be better, but I think also there are some decisions that were made. I guess, for example, Leggett not being included, that are I think a movement in the correct direction. So yeah, just right down the middle, C.
That's fair. All right, gang. It was great to have everybody on. We ought to do this again. And we're all hopeful that the men's national team is able to string some wins together in the next window and get to the Qatari promised land. From us at DasChampions Football Report, Rico, Ryan, it was awesome having you guys on. We will all talk soon.